so biotechnology. Okay, so biotechnology is the exploitation of biological processes for industry and other purposes, especially the genetic manipulation of microorganisms for the production of antibiotics, hormones, or other things. So some examples include DNA profiling, so looking and seeing what someone's DNA might say about them, DNA cloning, which is just making a copy unnaturally, transgenesis, genome analysis, so to figure out what genes cause what, and then stem cells and tissue engineering. So stem cells are cells that can become anything. So for example, when an egg is fertilized, all the cells within that blastocyst are all stem cells. They're just kind of general cells that will eventually turn into something, but at the moment they're nothing really, they're just cells. So one cell could split and turn into a lung cell, another cell is going to split and turn into something else. So those kind of cells can be used, and we've been thinking about trying to use them maybe to fix someone's spinal column injury, right? If we can turn a cell into that spinal column fiber again, maybe we can give someone back the use of their legs. And then tissue engineering, just making new tissues for different purposes. Okay, so selective breeding is one way that we've that we've used biotechnology. So it's the intentional mating of two animals in an attempt to produce offspring with desirable characteristics or for the elimination of a trait. So some examples are wheat, so producing disease-resistant wheat by crossbreeding wheat plants and disease-resistant wheat plants with a high yield. Your class is down in Mr. Petru's room. Okay? Dairy cattle, so by increasing milk yield and by selecting bulls from high yield herds and breeding them with cows that have the best milk production. And then cattle breeding, the selective breeding, can also be used to modify other characteristics of cattle. I remember I was driving to Edmonton once and I saw these cows on a hill, and like this cow was buff. Like you could see the muscles in the cow. Like it was weird. So obviously that cow had been selectively bred to look like that, because cows in nature don't look like that. Another example over here is this chicken. Okay, so it's kind of hard to see the numbers, but it's going, so at 0 days, all the chicks kind of look the same. The chick on the far right hand side here, has been selectively bred to be larger. So it gets larger faster. So at 28 days, look at how big that chicken is compared to maybe a similar chicken in a different herd. Or this is 36 days, 56 days, right? It's so big that, that's where we're getting the big chicken breasts from. Yeah. I've heard that we've selectively bred turkeys so far that their breasts are so big that they can't mate on their own anymore. So that's where selective breeding can become an issue. Okay, so then genetic engineering, the process of manually adding new DNA to an organism. The goal is to add one or more new traits that are not already found in that organism. So some examples, so insecticide sweet corn. Scientists have genetically modified sweet corn so that it produces a poison that's harmful to insects. So when do you think that might be an issue for humans?
They actually eat the corn
or if the genes somehow mutate to become harmful to humans, right? There's lots of issues that could be there. Golden rice is a genetically modified rice that now contains large amounts of vitamin A. For the golden rice to make the beta carotene, 3 new genes were implanted, 2 from daffodils and a 3rd from bacterium. So golden rice would be eaten in places where they're not getting the vitamins they need, just to kind of up what they're eating. And then long-lasting tomatoes. So long-lasting tomatoes, or genetically modified tomatoes, came on the market in 1994. They were the first genetically modified food available to consumers. The genetically modified tomato produced less of the substance that causes tomatoes to rot. The genes it remains firm and fresh for a long time. And there's lots of examples of genetic modification. Have you heard of Roundup Ready canola? Yeah, it's everywhere, right?
Yeah.
And basically, it's been modified so that you can spray Roundup on this canola and it's not going to die. And the purpose of that is so that farmers can just spray their canola field with Roundup,
Yeah.
but it's not going to kill the canola. It's going to kill all the other plants around it, just not the canola. And some issues with that is when the canola goes to seed, the seeds spread everywhere, and then people get this canola in their yards or maybe in other fields that they can't kill because the Roundup's not going to kill it. So there's lots of places where genetic engineering has been used, and people are really hesitant because we don't know what is going to happen, right? Scientists are just like, hey, we made this, we think it's safe, go try it. And they're turning us into guinea pigs, and it's hard to say, like, is it good? It might be because it's increasing crop yields, right? But maybe it's not. Who knows? It's hard to say. It's a really big battle right now. Synthetic biology, an interdisciplinary branch of biology combining disciplines such as biotechnology, evolutionary biology, molecular biology, systems biology, biophysics, computer engineering, and it is in many ways related to genetic engineering. So examples of synthetic biology are synthetic life. So attempts to either probe the origins of life, in attempts to probe the origins of life, some studies of the properties of life, or more ambitiously, to recreate from non-living substances. So we looked a couple of lessons ago on that experiment where they put everything they thought was in the beginning of the earth and they shot it with electricity, right? That might be an example of this, where they're trying to see if they can create life from nothing. And then biosensors is an engineered organism, usually a bacterium, that is capable of reporting some environmental phenomenon, such as the presence of heavy metals or toxins. So they would have somehow changed the bacterium so that maybe it changed color, maybe it released a pheromone of some sort that would make someone know that something was wrong. Okay, some medical applications of biotechnology. The study of pharmacogenomics can result in the development of tailor-made vaccines for people. More accurate means of determining drug dosages, improvements in drug discovery and approval, and the development of safer vaccines. Modern biotechnology can be used to manufacture drugs more easily and cheaply, as they can be produced in larger quantities from existing genetic sources. Genetic diagnosis involves the process of testing for suspected genetic defects through the administering treatment and before administering treatment through genetic testing. And in gene therapy, a good gene is introduced into a random location in the genome to aid in the cure of disease that is caused by a mutant gene. So basically a lot of that is saying is they can look at what your disease is. So say you have a specific kind of cancer. I've seen, they were fiction television shows, but a lot of those shows are based on reality. I've seen TV shows where they've taken the genome of the cancer cell and they've figured out exactly what the cancer is made out of, basically. And then they've created a specific protocol to deal with that cancer. And if it's a specifically dangerous cancer, it could be really effective if you can, like for that specific patient, find a really good treatment to get rid of that cancer. Okay, some industrial applications. Known mainly in Europe as white biotechnology is the application of biotechnology for industrial purposes, including industrial fermentation. It includes the practice of using cells such as microorganisms or components of cells like enzymes to generate industrially useful products in sectors such as chemicals, feed and food, detergents, pulp and paper, textiles, and biofuel. In doing so, biotechnology uses renewable raw materials that may contribute to lowering greenhouse gas emissions and moving away from photochemical-based economy. So using more natural things to grow what you need rather than trying to mill them out of different places. So some positives of biotechnology. People have been modifying plants, animals, and microorganisms for specific uses for centuries. Today, there are newer, more precise methods of genetic modification that are being used to introduce diverse beneficial characteristics including better tasting fruits and vegetables that retain their flavor and texture for longer, fruits and vegetables, grains, or oils, which enhance health, plants with their built-in pest-resistant traits, so fewer pesticides are needed on the field, plants resistant to viruses, so less pesticides are needed to control the insects which transmit the virus, and vaccines for animals to protect against disease otherwise not controllable. So absolutely, there are some benefits to biotechnology, but there are also some negatives to biotechnology. So despite harvesting thousands of genetically modified plants, scientists still do not have a clear understanding of how these genetic changes can affect the human body long term, primarily because food plants have only been available since the early 1990s. Monsanto, the largest GM seed developer in the world, and the organization that provides the majority of the research results to the FDA, says GM seeds are harmless to humans. Do you see a problem with this? With this part? What do you see? Okay, so Monsanto's developing the seeds. They're providing, so the FDA, this is the Food and Drug Administration. They're the people who say foods and drugs are safe, basically. So they're providing their research results to the FDA that say the food is safe. Okay. So they're developing it, they're testing it, they're saying it's safe. Do you see could you see an issue in that?
Yeah.
What could be the issue?
They're like clearing it as being safe and stuff, but a lot of it isn't.
It might not be, right? They might be skewing the results in their favor, right? And like cigarette manufacturers did it for years, right? They had doctors skew the facts about what tobacco did for you if you smoked it on a regular basis. And for a long time, doctors were saying, sure, go smoke. It'll be good for you. It'll clear your lungs out. And what we know now about cigarettes, is pretty much the exact opposite. So who knows if Monsanto's telling the truth, right? They could just be in it for the money and doing anything possible to get that money. Some scientists have found that genetically modified plants have indeed altered the lifespan, disease process, and cognitive abilities of insects that feed on these plants. This research is ongoing. Okay, so something like a genetically modified plant may end up naturally selecting for different bugs, right? If there's one specific bug that can eat that genetically modified plant, that bug is going to proliferate, and there's going to be lots of bugs like that, so they're going to change, right? And what they're eating, what they're doing, all that's going to change based on what's there. And maybe this point isn't very specific, but maybe it's the modifications themselves that are changing the bugs. Something's getting into their system and it's changing them. And if it's happening to bugs, chances are it might happen to humans too. All right, so here's a video on the Human Genome Project.